So XFL teams continue to fill out their rosters, guys, with the supplemental draft that just took place. Let's go over some players that stood out to us. Glessner, why don't you kick us off? I think you're going to focus on somebody from the St. Louis Battlehawks with tons of NFL experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I saw his name come across Twitter yesterday, my eyes lit up because I was surprised that he was even still available. Thought that he was waiting for an NFL opportunity, but that would be Terrence Williams. I think everybody who has watched the NFL the last 5 years remembers Terrence Williams. Extremely durable guy, played for the Dallas Cowboys. Played in, looks like for all 5 years he was in the NFL, started 16 games. So played in all of those, has 23 career touchdowns and close to 3,500 career reception yards. So certainly a big-time player, and I think can, again, only add to the St. Louis Battlehawks offense, as we talked about in another segment with Jordan Teamu and possibly Tanner Heineke. But I think he's going to be a dynamic weapon for him. And I guess that the reason he hadn't been picked up yet, I think that he has had some suspension issues in the NFL. Looks like he was suspended for substance abuse once, 3 games. So I think he's run into some hard times lately. So I'd like to see him kind of get back on his feet in the XFL and really kind of haul in a bunch of touchdowns for the Battlehawks.
Yeah, he was kind of the Robin to Dez Bryant's Batman in Dallas. Like he was kind of
that's a good way to put it, Kenny. Yeah. He
was kind of the revolving door, like him, Miles Austin, Cole Beasley. Like those guys were very good compliments to Dez and Jason Witten when they were there. So
well, he was an extremely productive player, right? He wasn't like earth-shattering, like as far as making Pro Bowls and stuff like that, but he was extremely productive. He did what they wanted to do on offense in Dallas, and he was a really good complement piece. So like to see what he can do, certainly for the Battlehawks.
He automatically becomes one of the bigger name wide receivers in the league, doesn't he? I mean, I had him in the mock draft going really early that we did, so I'm just glad he's in the league.
Maybe I think he was probably holding out for another NFL opportunity, and then probably through his agent. I don't think teams – I don't know why. I mean, again, the only thing that I can see is that he was suspended for substance abuse once in 2018. So I don't know if teams are pretty shy and they don't want to even take the chance on that. But I was surprised he didn't have another NFL opportunity. One
thing I do know is that the Battlehawks picked up a hell of a receiver. I mean, it's hard in this league to find a player that has the kind of experience and success that Williams has had in the NFL, so it's a huge pickup for them. Pastel, you also wanted to focus on somebody from the Battlehawks.
Yeah, well, Kenny, if they drafted Robin, they also got the Joker, and that's
look at that! Look at that, Pastel.
Nice zing.
So clever.
Somebody's personality is bigger than his leg, honestly. That guy, every time you see him on the NFL field, he's doing something. He's dancing. He's picking up flags after he gets hit from a late hit when he was punting for the Raiders. So, I mean, this guy's big character, big leg. He is actually a good punter. I think he's signed 2 extensions at this point in the NFL for pretty big contracts. So I'm excited to see what he does in the XFL. I do think the Battlehawks did get a good kicker. I feel like we're Battlehawk fans at this point. We always talk about the Battlehawks. Talk about how great the quarterbacks are, receivers, punters. At this point. They have a good roster. But yeah, no, I'm definitely excited to see Marquette King in the league.
Excellent. Yeah, I like if you're a punter, you got to have a big personality to stand out, because most punters, or special teams guys, kickers, punters, most of those guys don't have a personality. You don't hear a lot about their personality. So it's kind of cool to see someone in the league who, has fun on the field, is outspoken in social media, and just is going to have a presence and kind of be a mouthpiece for players in the league.
Guys, think about this. When we talk about outspoken punters, you're going to have Pat McAfee and Marquette King all talking and hanging out together. That might be must-watch TV. I mean,
good point, Gless. Great point.
What a duo that would be.
Yeah.
Can't wait for the interviews on that game. But yeah, I mean, if anything, it's going to be a great story. And Kenny, you want to talk about something that's a really cool story.
Yes. Yeah, probably, maybe the biggest storyline in the XFL now, like in terms of outside looking in, is Damon Sheehy Giuseppe. if that name doesn't ring a bell, I get it. He only played junior college football, but he was the guy who had a punt return for a touchdown in the preseason for the Cleveland Browns in the entire 90-man roster on the sideline. They all ran off the sideline into the end zone, and they mobbed him in the end zone to celebrate with him. And the reason for that is his story is incredible. I mean, they're going to make a movie about this one day. He was homeless. Well, let's start off he was the 2016 junior college All-American, and then didn't play football after that. He was jobless and homeless, living in Miami as early as this year, 2019, spring of 2019. Lied about knowing director of player personnel Alonzo Highsmith at a Cleveland Browns spring practice to get like a workout. Like, if you've ever seen the movie Major League, he's like the modern day Willie Mays Hayes. Lies to get into the facility, has a great workout. They keep him on as a special teams guy to compete as a punt returner and kick returner, and then scores the touchdown in the preseason. It's just an incredible story. Unfortunately, he didn't make the full roster, but now he's on the XFL, and it's just another positive storyline for the XFL to have, and it's awesome to showcase these great stories and these guys who are literally coming from being homeless to being a professional football player. Like, it's fantastic. I really hope he succeeds. I love it.
I got a feeling this is not going to be a feel-good story. It's going to just be a good player in the XFL. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about how the rule book, and once they release the rule book, hopefully we get better clarification, but how it's going to highlight the kick return and punt return element of the football game. And a guy like that, and to utilize his talents on special teams, he's going to be a player in this league, man.
Yeah.
Another guy that stood out to me, Kenny, from the Guardians, is linebacker Antonio Morrison. This guy has quite the baggage, quite the story. He was in the league for a while. He actually led the Colts in tackles in 2017 with 109. So wow. He has some legit playing experience in the league. He's had a couple of legal issues at Florida, where he went to college. He was a first-team All-SEC. He was planning to leave after his junior year, but he blew out his ACL, I believe, in the bowl game that he was playing. And so he was forced to come back in his senior year, and he totaled 350 freaking total tackles in his fourth season. So the dude was a monster,
machine, man.
Yeah, but the injuries kind of derailed him a little bit from his initial plans. I think the Colts traded up to get him actually in the fourth round. Like I said, he led them in tackles. So I think it's a big get for a team to bring in, kind of like what we talked about with Terrence Williams, to bring in a guy that has that type of NFL, not just NFL experience, but actual game experience, to bring him in your linebacking core is huge. So that was a big get for the Guardians. I want to focus on the DC Defenders. After the initial draft, I think we all agreed that they had a really good draft, really solid draft. And they had a clear strategy when it came to their wide receivers. They went for not like what you saw in New York. They weren't like 6 feet and over, guys that can really jump up and get it. They were smaller, quicker, faster guys that can really take the top off the defense. And in this supplemental draft, they really added to the experience, because that was the one thing that I was a little concerned about. Was they brought in a lot of speedsters, but not a lot of guys with experience at the professional level. So bringing in an Eli Rogers into your wide receiving core, I think is huge. I think it's probably one of the bigger gets in this supplemental draft. I mean, he was another guy that produced at the NFL level with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the one thing that we all know with the Pittsburgh Steelers is, if anything, they know how to draft and develop wide receivers. And he was able to get on the field at points. I mean, he was, we talked about this with Sammy Coates as well. It's just a crowded wide receiver room. He was dealing with Sammy Coates, Juju Smith-Schuster, Martavis Bryant, Antonio Brown. I mean, big-time wide receivers. And he was able to, accrue some playing time. So the fact that they can get him in a league like the XFL and bring him onto a roster that is very talented but lacks some professional football experience, I think is huge for the Defenders. And then another guy that they brought in at wide receiver, Malachi Dupree, who doesn't have the NFL experience, but the pedigree that he came out into LSU was Kenny, I believe he was a 5-star recruit, wasn't he?
He was huge. I mean, he was a massive recruit. He was the next guy in line, if you will. LSU's always had a tradition of having stud receivers, from Michael Clayton to Dwayne Bowe, to Jarvis Landry, to Odell Beckham. Like, he was the next guy in line. He was supposed to be that guy. He was a 5-star recruit, one of the number 1 recruits of their class, and unfortunately just never really paid out. And to be fair to his defense, he was on those teams, those LSU teams, where the offenses were just
dreadful,
horrific, just atrocious. Yeah. What did we talk about? Was it Brandon Harris was throwing him the ball?
Yeah,
like
Danny
Etling,
Danny Etling ended up getting converted, I think, to wide receiver or running back in the NFL. And he was quarterback in college. So who knows? I mean, this could be a guy who just hasn't had an opportunity to showcase his talent yet consistently with a good quarterback. So if he finds his niche with DC, man, that could be a potentially steal of the draft.
It's hard to completely whiff on a 5-star recruit, isn't it? There's obviously talent there. Right. It has to be there. It's just putting it all together. And at LSU, he was just dealt a bad hand with quarterback play. Couldn't overcome it. I mean, you need someone to throw you the damn ball. So he just, he couldn't get the numbers that he needed to get legit NFL looks. So he gets the opportunity here with the defenders. So then bringing in Dupree and Eli Rogers, I think, is huge. One thing before we jump off, it's just, to me, when I look at the supplemental draft, obviously it's to fill out your roster, and I wonder how it works in terms of some of these teams, the defenders brought in 13 new guys, where the Tampa Bay Vipers and the Seattle Dragons,
4?
It was 4 or 5,
3 or 4, yeah.
So you draft to what your needs are, but whether it's behind the scenes stuff in terms of players not committing to the league because of pay, or guys, I know the defenders and the Battlehawks have had. I guess it's problems. I mean, it kind of shows you how good of a draft that they had, losing guys to NFL practice squads. Is it an advantage or disadvantage going into training camp? So, these guys that are on practice squads are still, designated to your team. You have the rights to them if they, after the season decide they want to still play in the XFL. The number 1 overall pick, Rashard Davis. He signed to an NFL practice squad. If he wants to still play in the XFL, the DC Defenders have rights to him. So not only do they have the guys that they originally drafted, if they do come back, that's a great situation to be in, because now you have all these other players. So your pool of players to choose from just grows.
Yeah, you can never have enough competition in minicamp and training camp. So the more players you have, the more opportunities you're going to have to be successful, because it gives you more guys to choose from. It's simple, odds. You have a team that has 200 guys and a team that has 50 guys, and you got to cut down to 30. I think the team with 200 guys to get down to 30 is probably going to be better, because you're actually selecting those 30. You can hand select it, where if a team has 50, I know that's an extreme example, but just saying, the more players you can choose from, the more selective you can be.
The key part here, though, Kenny, is you need those players after their practice squad, either after they're cut or after the season concludes. You need them to commit back to you, or on the flip side, you've lost all of this talent from your team that you're not going to get to start the season.
But I do wonder if these guys that got picked in the supplemental draft were holding out for NFL jobs, right? And they're probably, I mean, we mentioned 4, 5, 6 guys today that were easily productive NFL players, and for some reason they're not getting a shot in the league. So all it is just a shuffling of players, right? These guys have NFL quality, but a guy like Terrence Williams, he's not going to go play in a practice squad. He's not going to do that. He signed multi-million-dollar extension in 2017. That's not what he's going to go do. So I think it's just a shuffling of players. These guys were simply holding out, and they kind of see the window of getting an NFL job basically being closed in front of their eyes. So they're like, well, now I'm ready to commit to the XFL because it's a month later, right, from the initial draft. That's how I see it, but I think you bring up a good point, Riley.
Yeah, but to answer your question, you're saying is it an advantage or disadvantage? Yeah, I see what you're saying, Kenny, as far as having more people to choose from. But eventually you're going to want to know your personnel so you can actually start scheming. So if you have a Dupree or if you have a Rashard Davis, which receiver do you actually have? And if you're not going to find out until middle of January, which is when the training camps start in Houston, I would rather game plan right now instead of 2 months from now, 3 weeks for the XFL season.
It's a great point.
It could honestly go one of two ways. Either you get all these guys that are right now in practice squads, you get them back, and then your team is loaded with NFL caliber guys, or vice on the other side, you lose all these guys to practice squads, and then they say, I'm just going to hold out and work out for the next NFL season. And then you screwed yourself in the original draft with all these wasted picks.
It's going to be interesting to see, because a lot of practice squads, what happens when the season's over is they get signed, a handful of guys from each practice squad get signed to what they call reserve contracts. And they're non-guaranteed, but they're guaranteed as long as they keep you. But they're non-guaranteed. You can get cut at any time. But it basically is like a placeholder contract that says, hey, you're going to be with us in mini camps and OTAs.
Yeah. But I think it's a great point, Gless. I mean, I can't imagine like Eli Rogers, Terrence Williams, guys like that would have gone undrafted in the first, the first XFL draft. I can't see that.
Yeah. It was probably communicated from their agent saying, hey, like, he's not interested in committing to the XFL right now. Like, we're still holding out for an NFL contract, and now it's a month later. We're in week, what's tomorrow? Was it week 12? Now it's week 12. Season's basically, it's 3/4 over. I still want to play football, so this is an opportunity for me to play football.
Time is just going so fast, guys, isn't it? Like, I can't believe that mini camps are starting around the corner, then training camps. I mean, the season's going to be here before we know it. And I think before we wrap up, it's worth mentioning that there's going to be another supplemental draft that's going to take place sometime in January. So there you're going to even see more guys that are, wrapping up their practice squad duties that are going to say, I'll play in the XFL. Why not make, some extra money during the off season? So you're going to probably see some decent names in that pool.
Yeah, I remember about a month ago when we discussed a similar topic around the XFL draft. Pastel, you were a big proponent of that January supplemental draft, and you'd made the comment, well, I think a lot of the players that we're going to see on the field from a star perspective will be taken in January, because the NFL season will be in the playoffs and the teams that don't make it, and you get a lot of those guys on the practice squad who won't get contracts coming back. So he'd be like, you know what, I'm going to go play in the XFL. So
yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's where the talent's going to be for at least a fourth of the league. Honestly, like, it's guys that want to make an extra 50 to 100K playing for 10 weeks, want to give them the exposure, and eventually these guys just need to start playing more in game to get some game film on them instead of just practice. So I think it'd be a smart move for some of those practice squad players to get on an XFL team to display their talent.
It's a great point, Pastel. If you're stuck on a practice squad, I mean, you're just stagnant. There's no way for you to like make any impression on these teams if you're just behind the scenes the whole time running scout team and whatnot. You need to get some game reps in a league like the XFL. I mean, it's pretty high competition. Like, I'm very encouraged. I really hope what you're saying actually happens, Pastel, because that's exciting. Because right now, as we look at it, these rosters, I mean, there's some good football talent on these rosters already. So we'll see how it shapes out in terms of guys, whether they agreed to take XFL contracts or not. So that'll kind of all be sorted out once we get to mini camp and training camp. We'll have a better idea of that. But just based off looking at the rosters now, it's a very encouraging sight for the XFL. What's up, football fans? Visit xflchalktalk.com to get the latest analysis, discussions, interviews, and news from around the league. You can also sign up for our email list so you can receive notifications on when content is posted focused on your favorite XFL team.